last presidential, the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. So there he is in his own plane landing now in Atlanta. We're going to watch here live for a moment as we watch this historic event, confirming here 13 separate counts there in Georgia, including a racketeering charge, several fraud and false statement counts. The deadline to turn himself, as well as his 18 co-defendants in this case, their deadline to turn themselves in is tomorrow. So here they are, one day in advance.
Former President Donald Trump's private plane. He's flying in from Bedminster, the golf club there in New Jersey. He has an estate there that he essentially used as a second home during his presidency. And you can actually see Trump written on the side of the plane there. Again, will be landing in just moments there at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. So these were live images from the Atlanta.
Stated that this is the first time a U.S. president will have a picture taken that is commonly known as a mugshot.
And apparently now Trump agreed earlier this week to a $200,000 bond. Now, this order also bars him, though, from using any social media to target any of the co-defendants or witnesses in this case. So as soon as this could be headed to trial, the Fulton County District Attorney is asking for a trial of all 19 people to begin on October 23rd. Now, this is an extremely ambitious timeline, as you know, Trump is very opposed to this trial date. His attorney's just filing that this afternoon.
And of course, not the first time that he has faced charges like this. In April, former president was booked in New York on state charges related to the hush money scheme. In June, surrendered at a Miami federal courthouse to face charges, a special counsel probe into the mishandling of his classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate. And then earlier this month, Trump was placed under arrest also in Washington, D.C., arraigned on those charges, brought in that investigation into attempts again here to overthrow the 2020 election. So we're bringing you live coverage here as a historic moment happens. The former president of the United States lands in his own plane here in Atlanta, preparing to face charges.
So as you can imagine, the security situation outside the Fulton County Jail is at a very high level right now. Law enforcement has been amping up all day. That security has been building outside the Fulton County Jail, as we've heard from numerous live reporters that have been there this afternoon. Apparently more than 10 agencies from Metro Atlanta area are at the scene. This is K-9 units as well to make sure that there's no explosives or any drones that could be seen flying in that area. And one police source also says that officers are comparing Trump's surrender to the security level seen at the Super Bowl.
And you were talking about the increased level of security. We're going to bring you both pictures here so you can see kind of both angles of the two places that he will visit. Not only the airport here that you're seeing his plane taxiing now to make its appropriate landing and departure off of that plane, but then also the entrance into that Fulton County Jail where he's expected to arrive here shortly.
Right. So if you're just joining us again, this is a live look at Atlanta right now, where the former president Donald Trump's plane has just landed. And this is the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. He is arriving to surrender himself to the Fulton County Jail. Trump and 18 co-defendants face a noon deadline to voluntarily surrender after being criminally charged in the state's 2020 election subversion case.
And again, here you're watching live pictures coming in from Fulton County, Georgia. This in Atlanta here as we're awaiting the exit of the former president off of this plane, the departure, deboarding from his own plane, landing here this evening here at 8 minutes after the hour, expected to be at that Fulton County Jail by 6:30 tonight.
And we just talked about 18 co-defendants that will be criminally charged in this case with the former president, and we'll talk about some of them. Some of them had actually surrendered already. Trump's former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, he surrendered yesterday. And former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows surrendered on Thursday.
Trump landing again here live. That's why we're staying on this picture at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, considered one of the world's busiest airports, but all eyes on that airport, no doubt, this evening. And then he will now head directly from there to the Fulton County Jail for his booking. So we're going to continue to bring these live pictures to you as this no doubt breaking news here in Kansas City and many parts of the country, keeping their eyes on what will happen here today and what is expected to be a monumental moment. Donald Trump will surrender tonight to be booked on more than a dozen charges stemming from efforts allegedly to reverse the Georgia's 2020 election results. Fourth time this year, the former president has faced criminal charges.
This is the first time where he will actually be surrendering himself. This is a historic moment. We've never seen any U.S. president do this. Now, Trump is accused in the indictment of being the head of a criminal enterprise that was part of the broad conspiracy to overturn the electoral defeat in the state. These are the charges that he faces. Now, the former president faces 91 charges across 4 separate criminal cases. Carolyn just went through those cases with you moments ago. And so that's what brings us to this day today, where we are now currently waiting for the president to surrender himself at the Fulton County Jail. And again, this is a live look at the plane, and it looks like there's somebody stepping out of the plane there now.
Yeah, it looks like the stairs have been put into place, and he will be coming off of that plane here shortly. Trump, the first former U.S. president to face criminal charges. He's been indicted now in 4 cases, all while leading still the Republican field in the 2024 presidential nomination race. Time and time again, through social media, through whatever venue he can, constantly denying any wrongdoing in not only this case, but in every case he's charged with.
That's right. And once Trump steps off the plane, he will ride to... It looks like there that you do see some possible security getting off the plane there. Now, once the former president steps off the plane, he will head to Fulton County Jail. And he has hired a new attorney, Georgia lawyer. He will ride with him to the Atlanta jail. So his newly hired lawyer is Stephen Sato. He will accompany Trump to the Fulton County Jail. Sato is currently waiting there at the airport for Trump to step off the plane, and then he's going to ride in a motorcade with the former president to the jail.
Yeah, that, of course, switching of attorneys, also a hot topic in this storyline ahead of the surrender. He replaced his top Georgia lawyer with this Stephen Sato, an Atlanta-based attorney whose website profile describes him as a, quote, special counsel for white-collar and high-profile defense. Clearly what we're up against here today. The Trump source indicated that this was not about any sort of performance. Nonetheless, his approval ratings heading into this his bid for the Republican nomination again have only improved with each additional charge against him. Has not taken any hit. In fact, he's been able to raise quite a bit of money because of the charges filed against him. He's used them in such a way that it has actually improved his chances of winning that Republican nod.
And last night we had the Republican national debate, which Trump was not a part of. However, his voice was heard as he did a recorded interview with Tucker Carlson to run at the beginning of the debate, coinciding with the debate. And again, Trump right now at the front of the pack when it comes to the Republican National Party. All these charges that he faces has not hurt him in any way.
Again, this is all stemming from the indictment unsealed not long ago on August 14th, charging him and his 18 co-defendants with participating in a vast criminal enterprise to illegally reverse his defeat in the 2020 presidential election, but in Georgia alone. And since that day, others charged in the case have been negotiating bond deals, trickling into Atlanta there to surrender for a mugshot, fingerprinting and processing and so forth. But this is his day, set to happen in just a little over 15 minutes from now.
And again, Trump will be facing 13 separate counts in Georgia, including racketeering charge and some fraud and false statement counts. And the deadline for Trump and his 18 co-defendants in this case is to turn themselves in on Friday. So again, what you're looking at is that the live look at Hartsfield, Jacksonville Airport. They're waiting for Trump to come off the plane so he can turn himself in at the Fulton County Jail. Now, as he was headed to Atlanta today, his campaign sent out fundraising texts, and he said that in that text, it said that this is my last text to you before my arrest, Patriot. And the text also included remarks actually penned by former President Trump. And there he is right there. You see him walking down the stairs again. He will be meeting up with the attorney recently hired by him to ride to the Fulton County Jail in a motorcade.
Former president clearly well aware that cameras are on hand watching every move he makes. Departing here from the airport immediately by motorcade now directly to the Fulton County Jail.
All right, we're going to wrap that right now and return you back to some local news here. But this coverage of President Trump surrendering himself will continue in a special report on CBS at 6:30. We'll be right back.
Is going to happen, fingerprinted, and also a mugshot as well. Let's head over to Atlanta News First anchor and attorney Joy Lim-Nakrim. She's standing by in our newsroom. And Joy, as we await the former president to step off of Trump Force One, you know, you have a number of legal experts there with you. What is the thought process today? Because this is expected to be a quick process for the former president as he gets off the plane, as he makes his way to the Fulton County Jail.
That's right. It is expected to be a fairly quick process, as you say, Tracy. And it's very interesting because on one hand, we keep hearing this kind of storyline that the former president is going to be processed and booked and fingerprinted and his mugshot taken just like any other criminal defendant, but that's not exactly true because,
and Joy, I want to cut you off really quickly. As the former president just got off of the plane, I apologize, Joy, I want to make sure our viewers can see this right now. Here is the president giving a thumbs up as he walks down that staircase and likely will very quickly move into that motorcade. I'm sure right now there are some reporters shouting questions. He looked like he might have answered one, and there he goes into the motorcade. The clock starts as soon as that door closes, and he is on his way to the Fulton County Jail. You can see Secret Service right now moving the camera, saying, get back or get out of the way. We're going to stay with this shot and see exactly where they're moving them. Looks like they're walking underneath Trump Force One, and you can see the team now moving under the plane. This is back from the Atlanta News First chopper, showing the size of that motorcade. All presidential motorcades, current or former president, they look about the same. They have almost 40 vehicles sometimes to ensure everything is needed. So as we just saw Donald Trump getting into that Escalade, that Cadillac Escalade, to make his way to the jail, where the next step, Tracy, is going to be getting processed, likely getting a mugshot. Every single person who has entered the jail so far, Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, Kenneth Chesebro, Sidney Powell, Ray Smith, David Schaefer, Kathy Latham, John Eastman, Scott Hall, Harrison Floyd, every single one of them has had a mugshot. And I want to point out, Harrison Floyd remains in jail. He did not reach a bond agreement, but the former president right here has reached a bond agreement. Like you said, $200,000, 10%, up to 15% in the state of Georgia. So he'll be paying $20,000 to get out. His process will not be like most inmates at the Fulton County Jail, who can spend upwards of 60 days on average, whether they're indicted or not. He's going to be in and out. He's a former president, and yet the Fulton County Sheriff's Office and District Attorney Fonnie Willis have made it very clear they're going to treat him as close to every other citizen as they possibly can. The next steps here, Tracy, as we can assume, is that this motorcade is going to start moving here very quickly right up to the jail.
Pretty quickly. And as we saw the former president step off the plane, pretty indicative of how he has been, giving a wave and a thumbs up. And as you mentioned, probably some reporters shouted some questions, more than likely. How are you feeling, former president, today? And, you know, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from them. But we had heard previously that he might possibly make some statements to reporters. We will see if that in fact happens in that motorcade about to take off. And we'll find out exactly which direction they're going in. No doubt the shortest route to get to the Rice Street Jail in downtown Atlanta. And as we watch this motorcade, Joy, we want to head back to you again. And apologies for interrupting you, but certainly wanted to see the president walk off of his own private plane there. But some thoughts, and we have a number of law enforcement. Yeah, this is huge. This will no doubt block some traffic along the freeway there. So again, Joy, we're going to head back to Joy in just a bit as we watch this motorcade. Head out. Brittany Ford is right outside the airport there. Brittany, what are you seeing? All right, we may not have Brittany right now. She may be moving to another location, possibly had to move because of Secret Service. Who knows? The cameras as well may have had to move. She may have some difficulty hearing us too. But we're watching this all happen. And let's go back to the indictment that was just last week. And of course, DA Fani Willis gave all the defendants up until tomorrow at noon to turn themselves in. A number already have, but there are 13 felony counts against the former president, including the Georgia RICO, violating that act, kind of more or less a catch-all. In a way to cast a wide net for this. 3 counts of solicitation of violation of oath of office by a public officer, 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, 2 counts of conspiracy. So the list goes on and on. We want to go back to Atlanta News First anchor and attorney Joy Lim-Nakrin as we watch this motorcade head to the Fulton County Jail. Joy, back to our previous question, when we talk about how expeditious this whole process could be for the former president.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really one of, just the timing in itself and just kind of the fact that this is going to be an expedited booking process really flies in the face of this narrative that we've heard, which is that the former president is going to be booked and processed as if as like any other criminal defendant in terms of, doing the paperwork, the fingerprinting, the mugshot, etc. Certainly the average criminal defendant who is placed under arrest, either by surrender or otherwise at the Fulton County Jail, typically faces a wait time of several hours, 8 hours in many cases, is what we've been able to gather from certainly several criminal defense attorneys who routinely work out of the Fulton County Jail. So the fact that this is being done so efficiently, it kind of speaks for itself in terms of how the former president is being treated. In addition to that, look, average criminal defendants don't get escorted by Secret Service agents, right? So, there's a whole other level of protocol that's involved in all this. Another unique feature of how this is all happening is that bond arrangements have already been reached for most of these defendants. And, I should point out that Harrison Floyd, who's the leader of the organization Black Voices for Trump, is actually being held. And there's some speculation as to why. But, of course, 11 others have already turned themselves out on bond. And by and large, bond agreements have been reached for most of these 19 defendants. And all of them are charged under Georgia's RICO Act. So that's something, if you get out and you talk to criminal defense attorneys, or even prosecutors for that matter, but particularly criminal defense attorneys who routinely argue cases in Fulton County Court, routinely deal with clients at the Fulton County Jail, bond on RICO charges is often unheard of in many of these cases. For instance, in YSL, majority of the defendants did not have bond. Here, obviously, a very, very different situation. So it will be interesting to see how the process unfolds. And if there is a mugshot taken, I mean, there's no reason to believe that there wouldn't be, because we've seen the mugshots released for the other defendants who have surrendered themselves. But you know, that would remain to be seen, but it's not necessarily something that would have to come from the sheriff. And it just kind of, we're talking a bit about the expeditious nature of this process, not just the booking, but now we've got this news of this speedy trial request granted, that the trial has now been moved up to October 23rd, at least, you know, for now. And that's all because of the motion for a speedy trial that was filed by the legal team for Kenneth Chesebro, one of the attorneys for the former president. And, you know, his team filed that motion. The judge said, hey, okay, October 23rd, I'm paraphrasing, we can do the trial. And District Attorney Fani Willis didn't have to agree, but she did. She said, okay, we can do October 23rd. Clearly she was ready after a 2-year-long investigation. She was ready to go and ready to deal with a trial that was pushed months ahead of time. But it's something that's going to be interesting to see is how this is going to impact all the other co-defendants, because what that means is because of this motion by one defendant, now all 18, or 19, I should say, 18 others, would potentially be on trial October 23rd. Do I believe at the end of the day that's going to happen? Well, you know, I would anticipate to see motions filed for severance so that the other defendants can be disassociated from Kenneth Chesebro. If he wants to have his trial start October 23rd, you know, then you know what can happen is that he or the other co-defendants can file for a motion for severance so that the trials can be held separately for the other defendants.
Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, that makes sense that we're here tracking all this. The legality component of this is so complex and it's moving so fast, which makes it even more difficult. We're keeping our eyes peeled right here on this motorcade as it moves up what looks like I-85, I would say. Moving up I-85, not a single car on that highway going northbound, Tracy.
Well, and this is what happens whenever we have a president come to town. You have law enforcement agencies move ahead of that motorcade and they're blocking off entrances onto the freeway so they can have a free and clear route. And that is clearly what we've seen right here in order to make that process go that much faster. So they really have the entire freeway at their disposal. So we do have reporters all across the metro right now covering this story. Let's head out to Atlanta News First reporter and anchor Tori Cooper at the Rice Street Jail. And Tori, you should expect to see the former president's motorcade in a matter of minutes. They are moving quickly down the interstate.
And all eyes will be watching Atlanta when that happens, Tracy. This is really the crowd where everyone is standing right now over here. This is where we had a chance to talk with Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who came from the front entrance of the Fulton County Jail to address the media and everybody who has been here to spectate what is now turned into a historical event. Now, this is something we've been talking about.
Trump heading from Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport to the Fulton County Jail. By our estimates, just according to, you know, Google Maps, it's about a 17-mile or so drive. Clearly, they have blocked the way. They have quite a motorcade set up for this. This was very much expected to happen this afternoon. Many eyes in the country watching his every step from the time he left New Jersey to the time here in Atlanta.
All right, and that concludes your news here at 6. CBS is standing by for a special report as, again, former President Trump
and they're going to conduct an investigation through the Judiciary Committee. Here's what she said when we asked her some other questions.
This is a devastating day for America. Georgia is embarrassed and ashamed of this Fulton County DA that's abusing her office to go after and arrest the president, the former president of the United States, which is Joe Biden's top political opponent.
Now, just a few other key points I want to mention that came out of that interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene. She said that the charges in the indictment are fake charges against former President Donald Trump. And she says that right now they're just making sure that they can show support for the former president. And lastly, when she was walking away, I said, is former President Donald Trump going to address the media out here at all? And she says he is going to address the media. Now, whether or not that's confirmed, we are going to have to work on that. But those are words from Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I will be standing there to see if the former president is going to address the media as he enters or leaves the Fulton County Jail. Reporting live from the Fulton County Jail tonight, I'm Tori Cooper, Atlanta News First.
All right, Tori, thank you. And you're not the only one out there. Atlanta News First political reporter Doug Reardon has been out there as well since noon today, and it has only gotten more and more chaotic leading up to this moment right here. I want to bring in Doug right now. Doug, talk to us. What's that scene like as the president now probably less than 10 minutes from your location?
Right. Yeah, Alan, we've got the stream pulled up right here, and we are watching just like everybody else for that motorcade to pull up here to the Rice Street entrance of the Fulton County Jail. As we have learned a little bit more about the president's whereabouts, we learned he was getting off the plane. And we're learning now he's just about 10 minutes away now here from the jail. Things have gotten, really quite pensive and tense out here. A lot of the crowd at every movement, every single pair of cop cars that is coming up through the Rice Street entrance, everyone kind of pauses and takes out their phones and gets their cameras ready. What will happen is the motorcade will come up this street, which is blocked off on both ends here to allow for just the people who are here up until they blocked it off about 2 hours ago. He will go in through this main entrance and go back this road here to the jail, where he will, again, as Joy has been saying, have somewhat of an expedited process as compared to other detainees here at the jail. And keep in mind, guys, that the president is actually early. The deadline for them to turn themselves in, all 19 defendants here in this case, is tomorrow at noon. And there are still outstanding defendants who have yet to do this. Of course, the former president will be the highest profile by far, but this is still not quite over. We're going to be back out at the jail tomorrow to see which of these remaining defendants turn themselves in, and quite frankly, to see if anyone misses that noon deadline. We, of course, learned today also that October 23rd will be the date for that trial. That is far earlier than the originally proposed date of March, just before the presidential primary. There is some commotion down the other end of Rice Street here. As I said, guys, this is a very touch and go situation as everybody watches the same live stream waiting for this motorcade to arrive here. And of course, we will keep you updated throughout the evening, before, during, and after the former president arrives here at Rice Street. But we'll send it back to the studio for now and keep you updated. I expect we'll see you in a couple minutes.
Yeah, it won't be long now. The motorcade is passing the Atlanta University Center, just passed by Morehouse College and the stadium there. So they are really in the heart of Atlanta. And again, all the streets are cleared in order to make this process go as quickly as possible. Again, expected to not take very long from touchdown till when there's wheels up on the former president's plane. Only expected to take about an hour and a half, probably less than 2 hours altogether.
Yeah. And this is something that's been orchestrated months and months out. As soon as his team, as soon as Secret Service knew he would be making a trip to Atlanta, everything started to go into action as far as the preparations to get this ready, to keep the president protected, to keep everybody involved protected, including all of those protesters and supporters who are awaiting his arrival at the Fulton County Jail. By my clock, it's 7:29, just about to be 7:30. He said he would be turning himself in, surrendering at the jail at 7:30. So we are in the final minutes here. Atlanta News First is going to continue to bring you this live coverage as it unfolds, as we track the former president making his way to the Fulton County Jail. Something else I want to say, Tracy, as we mentioned the jail, he's about to arrive there. Rice Street has been in the spotlight here for years and years, for all the wrong reasons. They're currently under investigation by the Department of Justice for the conditions inside the jail, the same conditions the former president is about to step into here in the next 5 minutes, I should say, because they are moving very quickly right through downtown Atlanta. And there have been 7 deaths in the jail. Just this year alone, upwards of 30 deaths in the jail in the last 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years since 2018, 2019. And that has been a target for the former president. He's criticized the district attorney. He's criticized the sheriff himself. He's criticized the sheriff's office. And now here he is about to be a part of that gear that he has been taking shots at here since he was indicted.
Well, for as much as he actually can be,
exactly.
Because, you know, the jail will essentially be closed off and cordoned off, and only the necessary people will be there. He's not going to see the roughest part of that jail by any means, of course. But look, from this shot here on the ground, we can see that motorcade passing through, a number of people holding their phones up, trying to get some quick shots. A lot of people watching this as it unfolds. Again, history being made where we have a former president coming to Metro Atlanta, turning himself into the jail, facing charges, a number of charges for allegedly trying to overturn an election here in our state. We have a number of crew members working on this story, including Chief Investigator Brendan Keith, who's been looking into this. And Brendan, I know this is just fascinating, you know, to see history unfold like this. Some of your thoughts as you watch this.
You know, this hits differently for us because we live here. This is our community. And now you see the former president, the 45th president of the United States, driving down the streets we drive to turn himself into jail. And while they've said that he's going to be treated like any other defendant, obviously not every other defendant has Secret Service protection. He's entitled to lifetime Secret Service protection. So instead of a typical defendant being brought to the jail in a police car, this defendant, the 45th president of the United States, is being brought to jail with a police escort, with those highways shut down, with the road shut down. And so he's very close to the jail now. And what you're going to see, we're not going to see the process right now because this isn't a court hearing. That's another date. Here he is turning into the jail right now. This is the entrance of the jail. And he's going to essentially have his height taken, his weight taken. They'll write down his hair and eye color. Then what they'll do is they'll electronically fingerprint him with it's like sort of a piece of glass scanner, not ink. Then his mugshot will be taken, and we will get that because under the Open Records Act, it's public record in Georgia.
All right, let's head out to Atlanta News First. Patrick Quinn, he's on the ground. He's also been covering this story and a number of those issues at the Rice Street Jail. Patrick, can you hear us?
Right, he has traveling press. I am here right here, and we're right along Jefferson Street, and this is the large motorcade that we saw on the ground when the former president landed at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. They are now going through the Jefferson Street entrance of the Fulton County Jail. This is the intake center, the primary area where defendants go to start the booking process, and we saw roughly 30 or so motorcycles at the start of this motorcade, followed by many more SUVs. And presumably the former president is now heading into the jail right now where he will begin that booking process. But it all just happened here within the last 20 seconds. You just watched it. There has been a ton of security on the ground here. Secret Service, plenty of deputies from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, all anticipating this moment. And it has only increased in security as that motorcade got closer and closer to the Fulton County Jail. And now the former president is headed inside. We just saw him go through the gates here, and he will begin that booking process, and we'll be standing right here watching to see how long this takes. Again, as you guys have mentioned, while the sheriff said Sheriff Pat Labatt said he will get this standard booking process, his experience inside the jail will be anything but standard compared to the average inmate, where the average stay is 65 days. We're expecting the former president to be in and out as part of this expedited booking process within a matter of probably under an hour. They have certainly controlled the area to allow this to be as quick and seamless as a process as possible. But again, we just saw the former president in his motorcade go into the Fulton County Jail at the Jefferson Street entrance. This is the intake center just within the last minute or so.
And Patrick, I'm not sure if you can see from your vantage point, just kind of looking from the Atlanta News First Chopper's vantage point, I see a number of buses kind of lined up, and we know that street has been blocked off. There's a number of security precautions that have been taken. Any idea of the reason for the buses kind of lined up right where the motorcade is pulled up?
Right. Well, one side is completely blocked off by that bus that you're seeing. We saw that move in roughly 2 hours ago to completely block traffic one direction here on Jefferson Street. The other side, there is a dump truck that is partially blocking traffic, and to be honest, it's really hot out here, so we left probably about 2 hours to get some Gatorade at a nearby gas station. And when we came back, we were met by Secret Service, and initially they said we weren't allowed back in. Once we explained that we were media, they did allow us to come back to our gear, and they said starting at 5 o'clock this evening, that's when they really stopped any formal traffic going through this area, and they were certainly ramped up their security measures. So Secret Service is here, plenty of deputies from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, and I'm sure this presence will remain as long as it takes for the former president to go through that booking process.
All right, Patrick, thank you. We know Rice Street blocked off on kind of both sides. They essentially have that location locked down. And we're referencing kind of the intake area where Donald Trump is expected to walk into. So we're watching that as well. Let's head back out to Atlanta News First. Attorney and anchor Joylyn Nakrin. And as you're watching this too, again, a fairly quick process, but what are your thoughts as you see this all unfold, Joy?
Just thinking, what if highways were shut down for every other criminal defendant, right? I mean, you know, it's certainly, it's hard to argue that the former president is being treated as other criminal defendants would be. I mean, certainly there are arguments as to why he should be treated differently for, you know, obvious safety concerns. But I'm very curious to see how quickly this happens. Also very interesting that, you know, while we know, we were talking a little bit earlier about how Kenneth Chesebro successfully motioned for a speedy trial. You know, the judge proposed a date. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis approved of that date. You know, it was actually the former President Trump who filed a motion in opposition to that. You know, to push it back, essentially. Not okay to start trial October 23rd. So that's very interesting. You know, it will be interesting to see what happens next, if there's a motion for him to sever his case from the others, or at least to sever Kenneth Chesebro's case from the others. But it signals that perhaps Trump or his legal team is not ready to go to trial on October 23rd. But it is also worth noting that we did learn this morning that the former president had replaced his lead defense attorney here in Georgia. And I say here in Georgia because, remember, he's got now 4 criminal cases against him. 1 is in Georgia. Drew Findling was the lead criminal defense attorney for him here in Fulton County. But we learned this morning that Drew Findling has now been replaced with Steve Sadow, who is, you know, well known for you know, not only white-collar defense, but some very high-profile criminal defense cases. Clients like Usher, Rick Ross, T.I., Gunna. And Gunna, that's particularly noteworthy because, again, that was in the YSL case, you know, another RICO case, and apparently they were able to reach a plea deal in December. And here we've got you know, the former president facing charges of violating Georgia's RICO statute, among other things. So, you know, there's nothing really about this whole process that is typical. I mean, this whole thing is historic. So we're watching along with really the entire nation and perhaps even the world to see what happens next.
We are, Joy. History is developing before our very eyes in real time right here in Atlanta. I want to bring in Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe, who has been, of course, keeping our eyes on this entire thing as it unfolds. Brendan, he's about to step foot, I guess, into custody.
He's in there right now. You could assume he's both simultaneously in the custody of the U.S. Secret Service, because he never leaves the custody of the U.S. Secret Service for the rest of his natural life, so long as he wants to have Secret Service protection. But right now, he's also in the custody of the Fulton County Sheriff's Office and its deputies. Setting the scene here for you, the reason the shot looks sort of a little washed out is because the helicopter is at distance. I can tell you, having been a reporter flying left seat for 5 years in a news chopper, that essentially this is almost the full extent of the zoom lens, which is 72x. That's how far away the chopper has to be. Why? Because right now there's a TFR, that's a temporary flight restriction around the jail. It is a 1 nautical mile radius around the jail to an altitude of 1,000 feet. That's to prevent drones, even our drone. We actually asked if we could fly. The FAA said no at this point. And so that's what you're...
And it looks like we might have just lost the signal from that chopper, Brendan, but we are listening to former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who's speaking about all this. Let's listen in right now.
Focus on Shaye Moss and Ruby Freeman will be held accountable.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Walking. Yeah.
All right.
She just wrapped up there, I believe. Tori, can Tori hear us? Can Tori Cooper hear us out there? Maybe she can provide us with a little bit of what the mayor just said, the former mayor.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Tori, walk us through. What did she say?
That was former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who we just heard from. Luckily, I've had a chance to speak with her before. She just did an interview with someone else. I said, what is your reaction to today? She says, really, this is not a day anyone wants to see. But we had several people shouting, and she was trying to continue her comments. But what she did want to make sure that people were hearing was that this is a sad day in America that no one wants to see. But she was happy to see that people are doing what they can to hold others accountable. She did say that this is a sad day overall, and then she quickly carried on as many people just started to surround her. So that was the very latest from former Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, saying this is a sad day, but she's happy to see that those are being held accountable for their actions.
Interesting to see the former mayor out there. Tori, thank you. She had been obviously a very vocal critic of former President Donald Trump during his presidency as she tried to lead the city. She led the city here in Atlanta through the pandemic. We want to go back out to Doug Reardon, who, Doug, just moments ago, you probably had a chance to see the former president pass by you in the motorcade there. What else is going on from your vantage point?
Yeah, well, you know, guys, we actually didn't get to see the former president pass by. And the reason for that is because we had suspected this from the very beginning of the day. And quite frankly, why we put Patrick Quinn over on the Jefferson side of the street. There are two ways to get into this jail. You can come here to the main entrance on Rice Street, or you can go to the Jefferson Street entrance, which is actually the designated intake side, where they would bring anyone who they were transporting in a police vehicle through to get their booking and processing done. So for us today, it was really the flip of a coin. Which entrance was he going to show up to? And for the other roughly dozen defendants that have turned themselves in this case, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Some have come here to Rice Street, some have gone over to the Jefferson intake entrance, and honestly, we are still going to stay here because there's a very good chance that he could come out this Rice Street exit. The other day, in fact, one defendant, Rudy Giuliani, went in here and came back out this way and did a press conference. And so there's really no telling two things. One, which exit or entrance, I suppose, the former president will come out of. And also, still to be determined is whether or not he is going to address the media here, and quite a good bit of his supporters as well. A little bit of disappointment in the crowd here upon learning that the former president had already entered the jail and hadn't passed by this crowd here on Rice Street. And so, again, we don't know how long this will take. We know it will be an expedited process. As Joy mentioned, that is not typical for detainees here at the jail. It can be sometimes an hours-long process, but we expect that for the former president, this will be a matter of a couple of minutes to get him fingerprinted, booked, processed, and get his mugshot taken. As I heard Brendan mention earlier as well, we are going to be able to bring you that mugshot tonight. We're going to have coverage of, we're going to have it in our coverage. I have to give Fulton County Sheriff's Office some credit here. They have been very quick in getting these mugshots out of these defendants once they have been taken and they are available to us. We have pretty much gotten them right away. So we expect to have that, I would say, within the next couple of hours. Again, a very historic moment here today. It is perhaps for some folks out here going to be a little bit jarring to see a mugshot of a former president, and certainly one who is so very much beloved by his supporters. We asked a lot of people out here today, how does it make you feel to know that he is going to be in this jail, which really has a reputation for being quite run down and deadly in some cases. And they said it makes them sad, it makes them angry, a wide range of responses, but those were really the two that we got in talking to a lot of the former president's supporters out here. And of course, you know, none of his supporters wanted to see him in this position anyways. Many of them are still maintaining, even in front of the camera, that these charges are false, that they should have never been brought against the former president and the 18 others charged in this case. Even Steve Sadow, who is the new attorney for the former president, who was just brought on this morning after he parted ways with his defense team that's been with him for almost 2 years, he vehemently said that the former president is innocent on all charges, and even hinted at the fact that they may try to get these charges dismissed. He said, if not, at least we want an unbiased, open-minded jury trial. And certainly, we even have more indication today that that may be happening sooner than we thought. We know that District Attorney Fani Willis had said she had wanted to get this done as soon as she could possibly get it done. She had originally asked for it to be scheduled just 8 days before the primary here coming up in the spring of this year. But now we know that she is trying to get it done in October. I remember the night that she brought these charges, someone had asked her in a press conference, you know, you're the fourth person to charge the former president. Do you want to be the first to try him? She said, we really have no illusions about being the first, second, third, or fourth. We just want to get it done. And so we are inching closer to that portion of this saga, guys, and we'll, of course, keep you updated. Again, the former president very well could come out this exit, so we'll let you know. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio for now, though.
Yeah, no, we've got you and a whole team of reporters all over that jail. If there is any motion, we will have it for sure. Now, as we go back out to the Atlanta News First chopper flying over that intake portion of the Fulton County Jail, we're keeping our eyes on the president. That timeline's going to move very quickly, in and out, and then back to the airport. Once that motorcade starts moving, once the president exits the jail, Atlanta News First will have that right here live, as you just heard Doug Reardon talk about. That mugshot that the Fulton County Sheriff has said will be taken. We're going to have that, too, right here on Atlanta News First. Again, everybody who has turned themselves into the jail so far, in all 18 of these co-defendants, I should say, everyone who's turned themselves in so far has had a mugshot taken. I want to bring back in Chief Investigator Brendan Keefe. Brendan, you say you've got new information regarding the president's bond. Is that what you said?
That's right. We do know that the president's bond has been set at $200,000. That was already pre-negotiated. So he's going to be released tonight, go back to the airport, and fly out on his 757. But how is he posting that bond? He has the option to post it as cash, but we have confirmed he's using a local bail bond service, just like Rudy Giuliani did yesterday. Rudy Giuliani used a second chance bail bonds. We have confirmed here at Atlanta News First that Donald Trump is using Foster bail bonds. Foster bail bonds confirmed to us that they are going to be providing bond for the president. Now, some people might say, well, wait, he's a billionaire. He says he's a billionaire. Why does he need to borrow money to post bond? This is actually a misnomer. People post bond all the time this way, even if they have the money. Because if I told you you could post $20,000 or $30,000 instead of $200,000, which would you choose to put up? And that's what a bail bondsman does. You pay them 10 to 15%. They take the risk, they put up the bond, and then they get the money back when you show up to court, so you don't have to park $200,000 with the court. So we've confirmed that he is using, the former president, a local bail bond service, Foster bail bonds. And one more note, we obviously are checking constantly. I'm doing it right now. I am checking at this very moment on my phone as I'm talking to you in the studio, over and over, refreshing the jail's website for the inmate search. Apparently, every other reporter and assignment desk in America is doing the same thing because it says connection timed out. Essentially, Donald Trump has crashed the Fulton County Jail computer system in terms of searching for inmates. This is so we could see whether he has actually been booked in to the jail, and that right now has crashed. We'll keep checking it, of course, but as of right now, the system is simply overloaded with everybody trying to see the details of the 45th president of the United States checked into the jail.
Keep hitting refresh, Brendan. We know you're going to see. We know you're going to stay on it. All right, we want to head back out to the location right out in front of the Fulton County Jail, to Chelsea Beimfohr, where she is out there amongst a number of people who are out in support of former President Donald Trump, and some people who are actively voicing their disdain in many ways for District Attorney Fani Willis. What are you seeing out there, Chelsea?
Yeah, we're on Rice Street, the backside of the jail, so we weren't able to see the motorcade, but you can see all of the people that are gathered here down the block. It's a mix of media from across the state, across the country, and also supporters and protesters that showed up for Donald Trump's booking today. We've been speaking to a number of people today. We spoke with many supporters, some that even traveled from out of state to be here. They told us things like it's a disgrace what the Democrats are doing to the former president. Other people told us this indictment doesn't change anything for them. If Donald Trump becomes the Republican nominee, they'll still vote for him. And then we've also seen some protesters out here today. They were a little bit less vocal, but still came out here holding signs saying, lock him up. We heard some of those chants as the motorcade was coming into the jail. Again, from back here, we couldn't see it, but we could hear some of the sirens. We could hear an Atlanta police helicopter that was circling. We also saw former Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who has been in and out of the White House over the last couple of years, serving in different positions. We know she was appointed a month ago to Biden's Export Council, which advises on trade. And so it appeared she was here to speak with a network and do an interview after she left their trailer. She came out and held a short press conference with local media. I know Tori Cooper was over there. I couldn't quite hear what Keisha Lance Bottoms was saying, but I'm sure we'll have that playing for you guys again today. We've also seen Marjorie Taylor Greene out here earlier as well. All right, we're going to send it back to you guys, and we'll finish up a little bit later. Thanks.
All right, Chelsea, I know it's starting to get a little bit louder, and no doubt it will get even louder once Donald Trump leaves the jail there. And we did get some new information. This from CNN. They're reporting that the former president has been placed under arrest and booked at the Fulton County Jail. And part of those records that Brendan was talking about, too, of course, not only the mugshot, the fingerprinting, they also take down any distinctive marks you may have or anything that makes you, the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, those kind of things. And according to CNN, the record shows that Donald Trump is 6 feet 3 inches tall, weighs 215 pounds, and listed as having blue eyes and blonde or strawberry hair. So that is all part of that booking process that he's undergoing right now. And of course, the fingerprints and the mugshots, the mugshot that we do expect to see very soon. But again, this all happening very rapidly. And as we take a live look right now in front of the Rice Street Jail, Alan, I was asking our reporter Patrick Quinn on the ground, and he has a very different vantage point than we do. We have the privilege of being able to see things from the Atlanta News First chopper. I do believe all those Fulton County detention buses are all lined up to block the view of anyone who may be at street level. Because, of course, just like with this chopper, how we're zooming in from here, people from the street can kind of zoom in and possibly get, you know, a number of photos, and they don't want that to happen in this particular case. So I have a good feeling that that's why all those buses are lined up the way they are.
Yeah, this is not a spectacle from the perspective of the Fulton County Sheriff's Office and the jail and the district attorney. This is a legal process. They are doing this following the rule books, following the legal process as laid out. And so for them, number one priority is to ensure that the former president is protected and safe as he makes his way from Hartsfield to the jail. And then eventually, we're going to give it to you live when he goes from the jail back to Hartsfield. Patrick Quinn, one of our reporters, one of our Atlanta News First reporters who has been out there all evening here, he's got a better perspective than we do. He's right outside of one of those entrances. I believe it's the entrance where the former president actually went into the jail. His motorcade drove right by. Patrick, you know, this has got to be the climax for what has been weeks of anticipation. About, I guess, 12 days since the indictment was actually announced. Here comes the former president. What is it like out there on the ground from your perspective?
Alan, I got to admit, it was certainly surreal to watch this motorcade just go by us roughly 5 feet from where I'm standing. They went in at 7:32. So he has been inside the Fulton County Jail now for roughly 23 minutes or so. We're starting to hear a little bit more commotion. So maybe that is a sign that he is on his way out. Again, he has just been in there.
Patrick, I want to interrupt you really quickly here. CNN reporting, and this really lines up with the motorcade that we see pulling off right now. according to CNN, the former president has completed the booking process, and according to jail records, he has been released on bond. Of course, he agreed to a $200,000 bond, posted some 10%, so about $20,000. So it appears as though that process has already started to wrap up. We see the motorcade leaving the Rice Street Jail now.
Less than 30 minutes, in and out in less than 30 minutes. You talk about an expedited process. You talk about efficiency as one of your top priorities here. This is what they just got done. And now, as planned, as we all anticipated, no surprise here, the former president is in that motorcade, passing right by our reporter, Patrick Quinn. This is a live video from his camera. We were just talking to him. This is what he saw once again, less than 5 feet from where he's standing. This motorcade heading right back to Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, where they will be. So we've got Atlanta News First reporter Adam Murphy, who's actually on the ground watching as this motorcade passes. Adam, talk to us. What's the scene out there? I'm sure it's a little hectic.
It certainly is, Alan. We're on Joseph E. Lowery Boulevard. Look at this. All right, so you see all the law enforcement officers on their motorcycles. Here comes the motorcade, it appears. They're heading south down Joseph E. Lowery Boulevard. We're at Donnelly Hollowell as well, and this road has been blocked off for some time. Now look. Okay, let's see what.
And you could hear a little bit of harsh language there as some of those motorcade vehicles pass by. Kelsey, in the back, can you let us know if that language dies down? In the meantime, we're going to keep that. All right, we're going to go back to Adam. It sounds like they've stopped. Adam, can you hear me? Yes, please.
We're back out here. Yes, I got you, Alan. Okay, so you're looking right now at Joseph E. Lowery. All right, this has been blocked. These vehicles are heading south towards the interstate. You can see the law enforcement vehicles coming through. A lot of people out here as well. There you go. The motorcade moving through right now. Looking to see if by chance we see the former president. There's a lot of people out here. And they came through going north on this stretch of roadway not even about 20 minutes ago. So very quick process, because we saw the motorcade coming through this area going north about 20 minutes ago, and now they're headed south, back towards the interstate, back towards the airport. And you can see Georgia State Patrol, heavy police presence. No one traveling down this stretch of roadway. A lot of people have been out here also watching. I mean, we've heard people on both sides of the president commenting, some in favor, some against. Obviously, you're going to get a little bit about that, but we are here in the Bankhead area. It looks like we are going to get the all clear here shortly, guys, where they will reopen Joseph E. Lowery Boulevard at Donnelly Hollowell in the Bankhead area. But you did see live right here on Atlanta News First, the former president's motorcade moving south back towards the airport. We'll send it to you guys.
We sure did, Adam. And now, as you wrap up there, we've got our Atlanta News First chopper back live over that motorcade. What you're going to see now is they make their way to the airport, and just based on normal timing with a motorcade like that for the former president, they'll be back in Hartsfield-Jackson likely before 8:15. I would say at the latest 8:15, as they move at a high speed directly back to Trump Force One, as he's coined his plane, the Boeing there, Trump Force One. So you heard Adam talking about supporters and protesters for the former president. This man right now is leading the Republican field with, in the latest polls, about a 40% lead over the second place, which is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And he's got a 62% control of likely Republican voters for the Republican nomination for president. So this goes beyond just politics, though, and it looks like we might have lost a signal there from the Atlanta News First chopper. We're going to work to get that back. This is another angle of the jail. I promise you right now, we are working to get that shot of the motorcade back. Stay with us here as we get that. But like I was saying, this is a man who is leading the Republican field right now, and a lot of Republicans across the country do believe that these charges, these investigations, these indictments are a hoax. They do not believe they are real. And then you have the other side of things. Here's the motorcade back, just as I promised. You have to understand that we are actually, I believe we're maybe going to get a look inside the motorcade. Is that what I just heard? And here we go. So this is a look from the motorcade as it moves through the streets of downtown Atlanta. This looks like towards the middle or the back of that motorcade where the former president is traveling in one of those first Cadillacs, or the first SUVs, I should say, behind that police escort, that large number of motorcycles from corresponding agencies from around the area, likely a lot of Fulton County Sheriff's Office deputies. I'm sure they're getting help from the Atlanta Police Department as well. But you guys right now are living in history as residents of Atlanta, residents of Georgia, as we get a look, Tracy, from literally inside the motorcade where the former president is traveling back to the airport.
There are members of the press that are traveling with the former president, and that's how we're able to get this very unique perspective here. And Alan, to your point of what you were talking about in terms of the Republican Party really essentially being Donald Trump's party, you know, a number of candidates last night at the debate said they would still, actually a majority, all but two, said that they would still back Donald Trump, even if he's convicted. And of course, this here in Georgia, the fourth indictment for the former president. But the question now is, as the former president heads back to Trump Force One at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, what happens next? So the booking process has already happened.
You've been watching coverage from our station, WANF. Of course, this is a historic day in America. Former President Donald Trump surrendered at the Fulton County Jail in Georgia to face criminal charges.
Of course, he allegedly meddled in that state's election results in 2020. That's what this is all about. This is the fourth indictment handed up against the former president and still the front runner to be the Republican nominee for the White House in 2024.
And we have WANF's Zach Summers joining us. He is outside the Fulton County Courthouse with the latest on this historic moment. Zach, thank you so much for joining us. You've been out there all day. Tell us what President Trump's arrival looked like.
Yeah, you know, one, let me just acknowledge the fact that, you know, you go on to the Fulton County jail records and you see former President Donald Trump's name and the 13 charges that he is facing in this 19-person indictment. It is quite a moment, and seeing him arrive here at the Fulton County Jail was quite a moment. He arrived in Atlanta shortly after 7 o'clock, took about a 30-minute ride to the jail from Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. Once he was inside the jail, and I'll just mention this entrance to the jail is where most prisoners arrive. There is a second entrance, just pretty rowdy. But, you know, he arrived. You know, Fulton County officials have been very good about releasing these mugshots as these co-defendants arrive and surrender and are processed. He spent about 30 minutes inside the jail before, again, we heard those motorcycles that let the motorcade rev up, and then they drove the former president away toward the airport. He's still en route to Hartsfield-Jackson. We are told he will get on that plane and head back to New Jersey. No events. He didn't talk to the media like we've seen with other co-defendants named in this indictment. But yeah, quite a moment, and as you said, a historic moment. We know the former president has been indicted 4 times now, but this is one of the first times we've seen him surrender at an actual jail, and of course, the first time we will likely get a mugshot of him inside said jail.
Zach, truly an unbelievable moment. You touched on it a little bit, but I'm curious more of what the scene is like around you tonight as far as the heightened security, as far as the number of demonstrators out there, how rowdy they've been, the number of media out there. Can you kind of set the scene for us?
Yeah, well, now that the former president is gone, things have calmed down a lot. I will tell you, around 10 a.m. today, both local, state, and federal officials were here. They started shutting down the streets surrounding the facility. Again, we're at the Jefferson Street entrance. This is the normal prison intake for any prisoner who is booked into the jail. But just around the corner is that Rice Street entrance to the jail. That's where a lot of folks enter the jail, everyday folks, people going to see their loved ones who are inside the jail. Now, that entrance is where you have all these demonstrators, Trump supporters, and even protesters. And the interesting thing here in Fulton County, officials did not separate, whether they were pro-Trump or against Trump. They were all together. And, hearing stories from some of our reporters here on the ground who are over there, there have been some heated moments. At one point, there was a moment where Trump supporters sort of lashed out at the media and deputies had to get involved. From my vantage point, we can't see that there, but we have several reporters who are on the ground and, they're reporting that. We're listening. But over here, this area where the president entered, you have a host of media, not just here locally, but across the country and even across the world. We've been held back by these barriers. And about an hour before former President Trump got here, they went on a hard lockdown. So we couldn't even move. Where you were stationed, that's where you had to be until all of this ended, which was about 15, 20 minutes ago. And so things have started to become a little bit more lax. People are starting to tear down. Law enforcement not as tense. But again, they don't have to be at this point because the process has worked itself out here at the jail. And now it's just a matter of the former president getting on that plane and heading back to New Jersey.
All right, WANF's Zach Summers joining us, giving us the latest from Fulton County. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yep, thanks so much, Zach. Let's get some analysis now of tonight's big developments. Joining us now is Jeffrey Jacobowitz, a white-collar criminal defense attorney. We're going to bring him in, pick his mind a little bit here as we process everything that we have seen, everything that we have heard tonight here out of Fulton County. So if we have Jeff available, let's get Jeff in here and kind of ask him. He's the expert. He's been watching all of this for us as well. Hey there, Jeff, if you can hear us. Another step in this historic process. Things moving very quickly here. We learned today that Trump switched lawyers at the last minute. What do you think could be behind that move?
Well, that's, again, another not unusual move by Donald Trump, switching lawyers. And it could have been that he was upset that he had to go through the booking process, that he had to go through the mugshot, that he had to give his height and weight, or maybe they weighed him. It's not clear. And he thought his attorney could get out of that, or maybe his attorney wasn't being paid. It's not clear why he did it, but he switched to he switched from one very experienced lawyer to another very experienced lawyer.
All right, and one of Trump's co-defendants, Ken Chesebro, a judge today set his trial date for October 23rd, the first that we've heard of that. Could that apply to any of the other co-defendants?
Well, it sure can. What he did is he exercised the Speedy Trial Act, and Fani Willis said, sure, we'll give you a speedy trial. In fact, picked a closer date than Chesebro had asked for. And what that means is either Chesebro's case will be severed, in other words, separated from the others if they don't want to go to trial that soon, or everybody goes to trial sooner, which would put a lot of pressure on the other defendants to cut deals sooner rather than later.
So could the outcome of his trial affect any of these other co-defendants, like John Eastman, for example, who also asked for a separate trial?
Well, what could happen is if Mr. Chesebro goes to trial and he's convicted, that will certainly send a message to the other defendants that, hey, there's a strong case here. The jury agreed with it. The jury voted unanimously to convict. And maybe I should think about cooperating and cutting a deal with the prosecutor.
Okay, and Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger has been subpoenaed to testify at Monday's hearing, where a judge is going to consider moving Mark Meadows' case to federal court. What do we expect out of that hearing?
Well, I think the chances of Mr. Meadows moving his case to federal court are very slim. And what he would have to show is he was acting under the color of law as a federal officer, but dealing with electoral elections and electoral issues is really relegated to the states. It's not a federal official's acts, and I think his chances of prevailing are very slim. And what's interesting also is even if he prevailed, Fani Willis would still maintain jurisdiction over trying that case. Her office would do so, and Mr. Meadows would not be available for a pardon either. Even though it would be in federal court, the Georgia pardon laws would apply.
All right, let's go back to Donald Trump right now for a bit. The next step for him, I suppose, is the arraignment. That could happen in person or virtually, we're hearing. Do you expect any moves from his team between now and then, or how do you think this plays out in the coming weeks for Donald Trump?
Well, I think what plays out, he's going to try to delay. So it could be he will also petition for removal, and if he doesn't prevail, he may try to appeal it to the circuit court, which may or may not take jurisdiction on it, and then he would try to appeal to the Supreme Court, who may or may not take jurisdiction. I think it would move very quickly, and it would be unlikely that he would get a favorable outcome, but he is trying to delay these trials until after the election. He is hoping he's elected, and if he's elected, then he would instruct his attorney general to dismiss the federal cases, or he would try to grant himself a pardon, but a pardon would not cover Georgia. And then he would try to argue that as president, he has immunity and he shouldn't be tried in Georgia either, or New York. Remember, he still has the New York case, which was the first one filed against him.
That's right. And, you know, we saw the day play out. Is there anything else that stood out to you from Trump's arrest?
Well, you know, what's interesting about Trump's arrest is it almost looked like O.J. Simpson on the highway, and everybody following the motorcade and everyone following, waiting for him to get there. But when he got to the jail, and he had some supporters outside, not many, going into a prison is not a nice kind of environment, and it really wakes you up. And I've been in different prisons, both federal and state, visiting clients who are either, you know, trying to get out on bond or out on bond and getting them released. And the Fulton County Jail has a reputation for not being the nicest place. And I think it's a wake-up call to Trump and anyone else who stepped in that jail, that if they go to trial and they're convicted, they're going to end up in jail.
It is such an incredible moment in American history for Donald Trump, and just the politics of it all as well. We're talking about the legal side, but there's the whole political side to it as well. It is fascinating. Jeff Jacobowitz, white-collar criminal defense attorney, appreciate your perspective on this big, important night. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
And we do want to get back to our station, WANF, over in Atlanta. They have had coverage of the entire thing.
Thank you.
From the airports to the jail to the whole thing. So let's see. I think they're still live. So
yeah, as we await the mugshot from Donald Trump, should be coming very shortly. They said the website has crashed, the jail website, but we are going to be standing by for that. But yes, our team in Atlanta picks up some coverage here as we take a look at the tarmac. It looks like the motorcade has arrived back at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport there in Atlanta. There could be still some sort of media statement. We're not sure what we'll get tonight, but you can see them gathering there. Large Trump team.
Yeah, and you know what? Last time that we saw Trump on the tarmac, we did.
Yeah, we know he was traveling with some reporters. A group of bring you any of that coverage. We'll get there, and someone or the folks who know is our team.
I think it will be all hands on deck until former President Donald Trump gets on that plane and flies off.
All right, Brittany, thank you. We have a live image right now. This is from the tarmac. You see a Secret Service agent there standing by that black SUV. Based on kind of the activity we're seeing on the tarmac, the former president could possibly make some comments there before he gets back on Trump Force One. We're waiting for that to happen. We see a number of people just kind of lined up and standing there on the tarmac. Of course, he was traveling with a number of members of the press as well. We see some press members on the tarmac just kind of standing and waiting, and some lights set up there. And Alan, that's not something you normally see, so we do expect some activity to happen. And many have speculated that the former president would say something, you know, on the heels of that GOP debate last night and his one-on-one interview with Tucker Carlson last night as well. And of course, him leading the pack of GOP presidential contenders, that more than likely he would use this as an opportunity to campaign. And there's the former president getting out of that SUV right now as he kind of walks a little bit closer to that gaggle of the press corps.
Here it comes.
The president walking up. Let's listen in.
I believe this is a very sad day for America. This should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows.
Meet Liana, part-time chef, full-time mom. In the past, Liana didn't have health insurance because
All right, we are seeing Trump get back on his plane as he's headed back to New Jersey, but we just heard from him talking to reporters. He did make a brief statement saying that he thought it was a sad day in America, and he continues to believe that it was a rigged election.
Yeah, the former president saying he did nothing wrong. He believes he did nothing wrong, that he was simply challenging the election. Of course, prosecutors see it a bit differently, as is laid out in the indictment here, that they believe with the fake electors scheme, according to prosecutors, that it was more than a simple challenge to an election. It was an attempt, a knowing attempt to overturn an election they lost. That is the difference between what the former president is saying and what the indictment is saying. And of course, that is what a jury of peers, of his peers, will determine if we make it to that moment here in this trial, in this process. Yeah, that's basically the bottom line here. The former president kind of saying he did nothing wrong. And let's kind of think a bit of a preview of his defense to come, is that they were just going about their official duties as far as their actions after the election.
Yeah, and he's been, of course, maintaining his innocence, not just for this, but all of the other cases against him. We want to join our station, WANF, once again. They have coverage for us, complete coverage. Let's join them.
11,000 votes. That's obviously where these charges are coming from with DA Fani Willis. We have a recording. We have a number of witnesses to that phone call as well. So this is something that we will continue to talk about, obviously, until this case plays out, as we take a live look right now at Trump Force One on the tarmac as the former president gets ready to depart Georgia in what has been a historic day. We did believe this would happen in less than 2 hours, and here we are only an hour and 20 minutes later, and the president about to go wheels up back to Bedminster, New Jersey, where he will resume his life to the extent that he can. Things will continue to play out here in Georgia. On Monday, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger expected to testify in court and to talk about what happened during that phone call. That will be crucial testimony that here at Atlanta News First we will certainly be watching. So this is by no means over just because the president has been essentially arrested and booked, and just because the former president has been arrested and booked into the Fulton County Jail and released on bond, this is nowhere near over.
It sure isn't. And the next immediate step in this probably thousand step process as it plays out for the president moving forward is going to be the mugshot. We have confirmed that a mugshot was taken at the Fulton County Jail 30 minutes ago when the president arrived there, right around 7:35 or so. He had to get into the jail, go through that process. That is what we are awaiting at this moment. And as soon as Atlanta News First gets that, we will provide it to you right here live on air. Now, you just kind of saw the ramp move away from the plane, which leads me to believe that everybody that's supposed to be on the plane is on the plane, and we're going to likely see it start to move here very shortly. And the Atlanta News First chopper changing the angle here, giving you a bird's eye view of Trump Force One. That long motorcade trailing right behind that plane that just escorted him from the plane to the jail and then from the jail to the plane. Brendan Keefe was in here earlier this evening, talking about how the jail website apparently had crashed at that point in time because everybody was looking for the mugshot. We were able to get the booking info from the jail, but as far as an actual picture, that has not happened yet. This is his fourth indictment. This is his fourth go-round through this process, appearing to a jail, appearing to a courthouse to answer to these indictments, both at the state and the federal level. However, Georgia, this is the first time that the former president will have his picture taken inside the jail, and it will be posted to the jail website, posted for the public to see, just like every other inmate that comes through Rice Street. And that is what we're going to provide you as soon as we get that motorcade going into motion right there outside of the plane. Like I said, which leads us to believe the plane is going to start taxiing down that runway to get off the ground once again. The president touched down right around 7:02, 7:03 Eastern time here in Atlanta. And here he is back on that plane less than an hour and a half since the president's plane entered Atlanta airspace, and he is already back on that plane. That includes the motorcade traveling from the plane to the jail, the process in the jail, which he was in there less than 30 minutes, and then right back from the jail to the airport. We brought you that coverage from front to back, from before the plane even touched down. Atlanta News First has been bringing you these live images, along with our swath of reporters out there at the scene since early this afternoon. Noon time is when our reporters, our evening reporters at least, have been at that jail. We've been covering this for about 10 to 12 days since this indictment was first announced. So right now, again, we are waiting on the president to take off from Hartsfield-Jackson, Atlanta, flying back to New Jersey. We are waiting on a mugshot from the Fulton County Jail as well. When they post that, we will provide it here on air, online, across all of our platforms, ANF Plus streaming, wherever you're watching us right now. We will show you that mugshot the second we get our hands on it. And Tracy, this process far from over for the president.
Oh, absolutely not. And as you were mentioning, Alan, this has been more than a week that we've been covering this story, really in anticipation, in preparation of this day coming. It was last Monday when those sweeping indictments came down for the president and 18 of his GOP allies. DA Fani Willis, this was a time when certainly up against, you could say in many ways, up against all odds. DA Fani Willis had been working on this case for nearly 2 years, clearly putting all those pieces in place even with the motion for a speedy trial. Probably likely knew that was going to be one of the things that would happen as well. We have been anticipating this day there at the Fulton County Courthouse and also at the Rice Street Jail. Barricades set up, security put in place, all the players really ready for this day. It is a historic one, and the nation certainly watching us here in Fulton County and Atlanta, Georgia. I want to head back out to our colleague, Joylyn Macron, attorney and anchor, to take a look at. Joy, you heard the former president speak there on the tarmac there, really reciting some of the same words that we have heard over and over again, that stolen, rigged, the election was rigged, election fraud even, using some of the same words that have been levied against him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I think it makes it very clear that we can expect a not guilty plea from the former president when that arraignment does come. We've been talking about, you know, the arraignment being one of the next steps in this process. And certainly that's what we've seen in the other 3 criminal cases against the former president. I just want to bring in the 2 attorneys that I have on either side of me. I have 2 criminal defense attorneys, both of whom argue cases routinely.
Meet Liana, part-time chef, full-time mom. She was surprised.
All right, you're watching live pictures here still from Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Atlanta. Former President Trump on Trump Force One departing after a whirlwind visit to Georgia to turn himself in, arrested for the 4th time tonight, this time for that election interference probe brought by Fulton County DA Fani Willis. Just the first step here in the next lengthy process before his arraignment. Could be eventual trial here. But again, we've been covering this for you. We'll have much more coming up in just about a half hour at 9 o'clock Eastern with another update live from Atlanta and analysis from our folks watching with us. Stay with us here on Local News Live.
It was chaos.
Devastating wildfires on